The morning sun rose over New Haven like any other day. Children ran through the streets on their way to school. Farmers checked their crops in the fields that stretched for miles across the valley. The smell of fresh bread came from the bakeries in the town center. Life was peaceful here, just as it had been for 3 generations. New Haven was home to 50,000 people. They had built this colony from nothing, turning bare ground into farms and homes. Old folks sat on their porches and watched the younger ones work. Mothers hung laundry on lines while their babies played in the grass. It was a simple life, a good life. Nobody expected what would come next. The warning systems never went off. One moment the sky was clear and blue. The next moment, massive ships appeared above the planet. They were dark and angular, covered in weapons. The Kryn Empire had arrived, and they had not come to talk. The first beam of energy struck the hospital. The building exploded into flames and rubble. Doctors and nurses died instantly. Patients in their beds never had a chance to scream. The second blast hit the primary school. 300 children were inside, learning their lessons. They were gone in a flash of light and fire. People ran through the streets screaming and crying. They didn't understand what was happening. New Haven had no weapons, no military base, nothing that would make it a target. They were farmers and families. Why would anyone attack them? The Kryn ships moved methodically across the sky. They fired on every building, every home, every structure they could see. The farms burned. The town center collapsed. The residential areas turned to ash. The attacks were deliberate and precise. This was not a mistake or an accident. This was murder. Some people tried to evacuate. They ran to the spaceport, hoping to escape on shuttles. The Kryn targeted the spaceport first, after the hospital and school. The ships there exploded on their pads. Families died while trying to board, holding their children in their arms. Others hid in basements and shelters. The Kryn used deep penetrating weapons. The bunkers became tombs. Those who survived the initial blast suffocated or burned when the fire spread underground. There was nowhere safe, nowhere to run. The entire attack lasted 3 hours. When it was over, New Haven was gone. Buildings were reduced to smoking foundations. Bodies lay in the streets, burned beyond recognition. The crops were scorched fields of black. The rivers ran with ash. 50,000 people had lived here that morning. By afternoon, not one remained alive. 2 systems away, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the USS Defender. It was a small patrol vessel, nothing fancy, but it was his ship and his crew. They had been checking shipping lanes, making sure everything was quiet in this sector. It was boring work, but boring was good. Boring meant peaceful. Lieutenant Amy Peterson looked up from her console. Her face had gone pale. "Captain, I'm receiving an emergency signal from New Haven. It's a distress call." Jake felt his stomach drop. "What's the situation?" Amy's fingers flew across her controls. "I'm reading massive energy signatures. Multiple ships in orbit. They're firing on the colony." She looked at him with wide eyes. "Sir, they're bombarding civilian targets. Set course for New Haven immediately. Maximum speed." Jake gripped the arms of his chair. "Send a message to command. Tell them we're responding to the distress call." Commander Greg Hayes, his first officer, moved to stand beside him. "We're 2 hours away at full burn, Captain. 2 hours." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. 2 hours might as well be 2 years. Whatever was happening at New Haven would be long over by the time they arrived. But they had to try. They had to do something. The USS Defender raced through space. Every member of the crew was silent, tense. They all knew people on New Haven. Amy's cousin lived there with her family. Greg's best friend from the academy had retired to the colony. It wasn't just a mission now. It was personal. When they finally arrived in the New Haven system, the first thing they saw was smoke. The planet's atmosphere was thick with it. Jake ordered Amy to scan for life signs. She worked her console for several minutes, then shook her head. "Nothing, sir. I'm not reading any life signs in the colony area." "Scan again," Jake said. His voice was hard. "Expand the search radius." Amy scanned again. And again. Each time the result was the same, nothing, no survivors. No one left alive. Jake ordered the ship into orbit. They could see the destruction clearly now. The entire colony had been wiped out. Not a single building stood intact. It looked like someone had taken a giant hammer and smashed everything flat, then set it on fire for good measure. "Take us down," Jake said quietly. "We need to see this up close." Greg turned to him. "Sir, are you sure?" "The crew doesn't need to see." "Yes, they do," Jake interrupted. We all do. We need to understand what happened here. The Defender landed in what used to be the town center. Jake, Greg, and Amy suited up and walked down the ramp. The ground was still hot under their boots. Ash fell from the sky like snow. The smell was terrible, even through their suit filters. They walked through the ruins. Jake saw a child's toy melted into the pavement. He saw a wedding ring lying next to what might have been someone's hand. He saw the remains of the school, where hundreds of children had been learning and laughing just hours ago. Amy found something in the rubble. It was a data recorder, partially melted but still functional. Captain, this might have something on it. They took the recorder back to the ship. Jake had the technical crew extract whatever data they could. What they found made his blood run cold. The Kryn had recorded their attack. They had filmed everything. The video showed Kryn soldiers in their ships watching the destruction below. They were celebrating, laughing. They pointed at buildings as they exploded. They cheered when the school was hit. One recording showed a Kryn commander speaking to his crew. Let this be a warning to the humans, he said. They think they can take what they want, settle where they please. We will show them that this galaxy belongs to the strong, not to weak mammals who play in the dirt. Jake watched the entire recording, every second of it. He made sure every officer on his ship watched it too. When it was over, the bridge was silent. Amy had tears running down her face. Greg's jaw was clenched so tight it looked like his teeth might break. They murdered them, Amy whispered. They murdered everyone. The children, the elderly, everyone. Jake stood up. Send this recording to Earth. Make sure Command gets every frame. Then send it to the Galactic Council. They need to see what the Kryn Empire has done. What will the Council do? Greg asked. Jake looked at the screen, which still showed frozen images of New Haven burning. They'll do what they always do. They'll talk. They'll debate. They'll form a committee. He paused. But maybe this time will be different. Maybe this time they'll actually do something about it. Deep down, Jake didn't believe his own words. The Galactic Council had never really cared about human problems before. They treated humanity like children, like a young species that needed to learn its place. But he had to hope. For the 50,000 people who died on New Haven, he had to hope that their deaths would mean something. The USS Defender stayed in orbit for 3 more days. They documented everything. They collected evidence. They searched for any possible survivors, even though they knew it was hopeless. The crew worked in shifts because nobody could stand being on the surface for more than a few hours at a time. On the 4th day, Jake received new orders. Return to Earth immediately. Bring all evidence collected. The Galactic Council had agreed to hear humanity's case. As the Defender left New Haven's orbit, Jake stood on the bridge and watched the planet grow smaller on the view screen. 50,000 people had called that world home. Now it was a graveyard, a monument to the cruelty of those who thought might made right. We'll make this right, Greg said, standing beside him. Somehow we'll make this right. Jake nodded, but he wasn't sure he believed it. The Kryn Empire was powerful, one of the major players in the galaxy. Humanity was still considered a minor species, barely worth noticing by the older civilizations. What could they really do against an empire that could destroy entire colonies without consequences? But then he thought about the recordings. The Kryn had been arrogant enough to film their crime. They had documented their own brutality, probably thinking no one would ever dare challenge them. That arrogance might be their downfall. Get me Ambassador Bennett on the line, Jake said. She needs to see these recordings before the council meeting. She needs to know exactly what she's walking into. As the ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying the evidence of New Haven's destruction toward Earth, Jake made himself a promise. He would not let those 50,000 people be forgotten. He would not let their deaths be dismissed as some minor incident in a minor sector. Whatever it took, however long it took, New Haven would have justice. He just didn't know yet what that justice would look like, or what price humanity would have to pay to achieve it. Ambassador Claire Bennett had seen the recordings 3 times already, and each viewing made her sicker than the last. She sat in her quarters aboard the transport ship that would take her to the Galactic Council station. The screen showed the burning remains of New Haven, the laughing Kryn soldiers, the broken bodies of children in the streets. She had 2 children of her own back on Earth. Every time she saw those recordings, she imagined her own kids in that school, running from the fire, crying for help that would never come. The thought made her want to scream and break things, but she couldn't. She was a diplomat. She had to stay calm and professional, even when everything inside her was burning with rage. Admiral Kevin Price sat across from her. He was a big man with gray hair and hard eyes. He had spent 40 years in the fleet, working his way up from a simple private to the highest military position humanity had. He didn't show emotion easily, but Claire could see the anger in the way he held his jaw, the way his hands gripped the armrest. "They're going to try to minimize this," Kevin said. His voice was rough, like grinding stones. "The council will call it a border dispute or a territorial issue. They'll use big words and legal terms to avoid saying what it really was." "Murder," Claire said flatly. "It was murder. Premeditated, deliberate murder of civilians." "Yes, but the council doesn't like that word. Makes things too clear, too simple. They prefer things complicated. Easier to hide behind complicated words." Dr. Lisa Morgan entered the room. She was young for a diplomatic aide, only 30, but she was sharp and knew galactic law better than anyone. She carried a tablet full of documents and precedents. "I've been researching similar cases," Lisa said, sitting down. "The council has heard 17 cases in the last century involving attacks on civilian populations. In 14 of those cases, they ruled it was a military action with acceptable collateral damage. In 2 cases, they fined the attacking species. In 1 case, they issued a formal reprimand." "Nobody was punished?" Claire asked. "Nobody." Lisa shook her head. "The council prefers diplomatic solutions. They think punishment destabilizes regions and creates resentment." Kevin made a disgusted sound. "So they let murderers walk free because they're worried about hurt feelings." The Galactic Council Station was the largest artificial structure in known space. It hung in neutral territory, equally distant from all major civilizations. The station housed representatives from 12 species, plus thousands of staff members, translators, and bureaucrats. It was impressive, Claire had to admit. Massive towers reached into space, and ships came and went constantly. It was a symbol of galactic unity and cooperation, or at least that's what it was supposed to be. Claire, Kevin, and Lisa walked through the main concourse. Aliens of every shape and size moved past them. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Claire had trouble understanding how they functioned. A methane-breathing species floated in a transparent tank on wheels. A crystalline being chimed musically as it passed. The galaxy was diverse and strange and wonderful, but today Claire couldn't appreciate any of it. Today she had to convince these beings to care about 50,000 dead humans. The council chamber was circular, with 12 elevated seats arranged around the edge. In the center was a platform where those presenting cases would stand. Galleries above allowed observers to watch the proceedings. Claire saw that the galleries were packed. News of New Haven had spread fast. Everyone wanted to see what the council would do. The 12 council members took their seats. They were impressive, each one representing billions of their kind. Claire recognized most of them from her studies. Council Speaker Velmar was a Tarathi, a species that looked like tall, thin birds with 4 arms. The Tarathi were known for being careful and neutral, never taking sides if they could avoid it. Velmar had been council speaker for 20 years. High Minister Drax represented the Korthan Confederacy. The Korthan were large, muscular beings with thick gray skin. They valued strength above all else and had little patience for what they called weak species. Drax looked at the human delegation with barely concealed contempt. Councillor Shemra was Velthani, a mammalian species with soft fur and large eyes. The Velthani were peaceful traders who valued fairness and justice. Shemra had always been friendly to humanity, but her species had little voting power in the council. The others represented various species, each with their own agendas and interests. Claire knew that convincing even half of them would be nearly impossible. The chamber doors opened and the Kryn delegation entered. Claire felt her hands clench into fists. She forced herself to relax. The Kryn were reptilian, covered in dark scales with yellow eyes. They walked on 2 legs and had long tails that helped them balance. They looked dangerous, and they were. The Kryn Empire controlled hundreds of worlds and had one of the most powerful militaries in the galaxy. Leading the delegation was War Master Thexkar. He was tall even for a Kryn, with scars across his face and arms. He wore military decorations and carried himself like someone who had never lost a fight. He looked at Claire and smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Council Speaker Velmar called the session to order. His translated voice echoed through the chamber. "We are here to address the incident at the human colony designated New Haven. The Council has reviewed the initial reports. We will hear from both parties before making a determination." Incident. They were calling it an incident. Claire felt her stomach twist. Velmar gestured to the Kryn delegation. "War Master Thexkar, you may present your statement." Thexkar stepped onto the central platform. He didn't look nervous or concerned. He looked confident, like someone who knew he had already won. "Honored Council," he began. "The Kryn Empire regrets that this situation occurred. However, we must clarify the circumstances. The planet in question lies within a region that the Kryn have historical claims to. Our ancestors hunted on those worlds thousands of years ago. When the humans established their colony, they did so without consulting us or acknowledging our prior claims." Claire wanted to shout that this was a lie. The humans had filed all the proper paperwork. The Council itself had approved the colony. But she stayed quiet. Her turn would come. "We attempted diplomatic contact," Thexkar continued. "We sent messages requesting negotiation. The humans ignored these messages. We had no choice but to take direct action to reclaim what was rightfully ours." He was lying through his teeth. The humans had never received any messages. Claire had checked the records herself. This was a fabrication, and everyone in this room probably knew it. "The Kryn Empire is willing to compensate the humans for their losses," Thexkar said. "We will pay fair market value for the structures and equipment destroyed. We bear no ill will toward humanity. This was simply a matter of territorial rights." He stepped down. Claire noticed he never mentioned the 50,000 people who died. To him, they were just inconveniences, obstacles that had been removed. Velmar gestured to Claire. "Ambassador Bennett, you may present humanity's position." Claire walked to the platform. She carried a data chip in her hand. She inserted it into the platform's control panel and activated the display. The recordings from New Haven began to play on the screens throughout the chamber. The burning hospital, the destroyed school, the bodies in the streets, and then the most damning part, the Kryn soldiers celebrating their massacre. The chamber went silent. Some council members looked away. Others watched with grim expressions. Claire let the recording play for 5 minutes, then stopped it. "Honored Council," she began, and her voice was steady despite the fury inside her. "War Master Thexkar called this an incident, a territorial dispute. I call it what it truly is, the deliberate murder of 50,000 civilians." She pulled up documents on the display. "These are the colonization papers for New Haven, approved by this council 52 years ago. These are the survey reports showing no Kryn presence in that sector for over 10,000 years. These are the communication logs showing that no Kryn messages were ever received by New Haven or any human authority." She pointed at the frozen image on the screen, a Kryn soldier laughing as buildings burned below. "This is not a territorial dispute. This is a war crime. The Kryn Empire targeted civilians deliberately. They destroyed hospitals and schools. They recorded their crime and celebrated it. Under galactic law, these actions demand justice." Claire looked at each council member in turn. "We are not asking for revenge. We are asking for justice. We want the Kryn leadership tried for war crimes. We want reparations paid to the families of the victims. We want assurance that this will never happen again." She stepped down and returned to her seat. Kevin leaned over and whispered, "Well said." The council deliberated for 2 hours. Claire, Kevin, and Lisa waited in an observation room. They could see the council chamber through a window but couldn't hear what was being discussed. "They're not going to rule in our favor," Lisa said quietly. "Look at their body language. They've already decided." Claire didn't want to believe it, but she could see Lisa was right. The council members looked uncomfortable but not outraged. They were going to take the easy path. When they were called back, Velmar delivered the verdict. The human delegation returned to their ship in silence. Claire felt numb, like she was moving through water. Everything seemed distant and unreal. 50,000 people dead, and the galaxy's response was a fine and an apology. It wasn't justice. It wasn't even close. Admiral Kevin went straight to the communications room. "Get me Earth, priority channel. Direct to the President." Within minutes, President Martinez appeared on the screen. She was a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and tired eyes. She had been president for 3 years, and they had been difficult years. Now they were about to get worse. "Ambassador Bennett, Admiral Price," the president said. "I watched the council proceedings. I saw their decision. It's unacceptable, Kevin said bluntly. They're letting the Kryn walk away. A fine that means nothing to them and empty words. President Martinez nodded slowly. The people of Earth are watching. They saw the recordings from New Haven. They know what happened. If I tell them the council has refused to deliver justice, there will be riots in the streets. What do you want us to do? Claire asked. The president was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was firm. Come home. All of you. We're done with the council. Kevin leaned forward. Ma'am, are you saying... I'm saying humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council effective immediately. We joined that council believing it stood for something. We were wrong. It's just another political body that protects the strong and abandons the weak. Claire felt something shift inside her. The numbness began to fade, replaced by something harder and colder. What happens next? That depends on many things, President Martinez said. But first we bring our people home. Every human serving on alien worlds, every diplomat, every traitor, every worker. I want them all back in human space within 72 hours. The galaxy will see this as weakness, Kevin warned. Let them, the president replied. They'll learn soon enough that they were wrong. The next day, Claire stood before the Galactic Council one final time. The galleries were even more packed than before. Word had spread that humanity was going to make an announcement. Species from across the galaxy watched to see what would happen. Claire walked to the central platform. She wore her formal diplomatic uniform, but she had removed all the medals and decorations that represented her service to the council. She stood straight and tall. Honored Council, she began, and her voice was clear and strong. I stand before you today to inform you that humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council. We are terminating all diplomatic relations, all trade agreements, and all cooperative programs. This is effective immediately. The chamber erupted in shouts and protests. Velmar called for order, but it took several minutes before the noise died down. This is highly irregular, Velmar said, his feathers ruffling in agitation. Ambassador Bennett, you cannot simply leave the council. There are procedures, protocols, procedures? Claire's laugh was bitter. We followed your procedures. We presented our case. We showed you evidence of mass murder, and you called it a territorial dispute. Your procedures have failed. Your protocols are meaningless. She turned to look directly at War Master Thexkar, who sat in the visitors section watching with amusement. Humanity has learned an important lesson. The Galactic Council does not deliver justice. It delivers political convenience. And we will not be part of that anymore. Admiral Kevin stepped onto the platform beside her. His uniform was full of military decorations earned over 4 decades of service. He looked every inch the warrior he was. All military cooperation agreements between humanity and council species are terminated, Kevin announced. All joint defense pacts are void. All military technology sharing programs are canceled. He paused and let that sink in. Humanity had shared significant technology with several council species. Medical technology, agricultural advances, weapons systems, all of that was now gone. Furthermore, Kevin continued, all humans serving aboard alien vessels or stationed on alien worlds have been ordered to return home. Any species attempting to prevent their departure will be considered hostile. High Minister Drax stood up, his massive form imposing. This is outrageous. You cannot make threats in this chamber. It's not a threat, Kevin said calmly. It's a statement of fact. We're leaving. Get in our way and there will be consequences. Claire spoke again, and now she looked at the entire council. For years, humanity has tried to be part of this galactic community. We've followed your rules. We've accepted your authority. We've contributed our resources and knowledge freely. And when we needed you most, you abandoned us. She pulled up the image of New Haven on the screens one more time. The burned ruins, the dead children. These people trusted that the galaxy would protect them. They believed in the Council's promise of justice. They were wrong, and they paid for that mistake with their lives. Claire's voice dropped, becoming cold and hard. Humanity does not negotiate with murderers. We do not share space with those who slaughter children, and we do not forgive. She and Kevin turned and walked out of the chamber. The council erupted behind them, members shouting questions and demands. Claire heard none of it. She was already thinking about what came next. Dr. Lisa caught up with them in the corridor. Ambassador, what have we done? The right thing, Claire said. Finally, the right thing. The message went out across the galaxy within the hour. Every human received it through official channels. Return to human space immediately. Bring nothing that doesn't belong to you. Come home. On alien trading stations, human merchants closed their shops and booked passage on the next ships heading toward human territory. On alien worlds, human workers quit their jobs and packed their belongings. Human students left their schools. Human researchers abandoned their laboratories. The exodus happened with remarkable speed. Humans had always been good at organizing quickly when necessary. Within 24 hours, thousands of humans were on the move. Within 48 hours, that number became tens of thousands. Some aliens tried to stop them. A Corthan factory owner tried to prevent his human workers from leaving, claiming they owed him for training. A human security officer pulled a weapon and told him to step aside. The Corthan stepped aside. A research station tried to confiscate human-developed technology before the researchers could leave. The lead scientist, a woman named Dr. Kate Hughes, destroyed all the data and equipment rather than leave it behind. "You want our knowledge?" she told the station director. "Earn it. Show us you deserve it." The Velthani were the only species that helped. Counselor Shemra personally arranged transport for humans on Velthani worlds. She made sure they could leave safely and quickly. When questioned about this by other council members, she simply said, "It's the right thing to do." Back on Earth, President Martinez addressed the planet. Billions of humans watched as their leader explained what had happened and what would come next. "The Galactic Council has shown us who they are," the president said. "They value politics over justice. They protect the powerful and ignore the weak. We will not be part of that system any longer." She paused, letting her words sink in. "For the next 3 months, all human borders are closed. No ships enter or leave. We need time to think, to plan, to decide what kind of galaxy we want to live in." The president's expression hardened. "The Kryn Empire murdered 50,000 of our people. The council gave them a fine. That is not justice. We will find justice ourselves in our own way, in our own time." The message was clear to everyone watching. Humanity was preparing for something. What that something was, nobody knew yet. But it made many species nervous. War Master Thexkar was not nervous. He watched the human exodus with satisfaction. "The mammals run home like frightened children," he told his officers. "They realize they cannot compete in the galaxy. This is good. It means we can take more of their colonies without interference." His second-in-command, a female Kryn named Shalax, was less certain. "War Master, I studied human history. When humans retreat, they are usually preparing for something." "Preparing?" Thexkar laughed. "What can they prepare? We have the larger fleet, the better weapons, the stronger military. They are nothing." But Shalax kept watching the reports, and the more she watched, the more worried she became. On the USS Defender, Captain Jake Morrison received new orders. "Report to Earth Fleet Command immediately." He and his crew were confused. They had expected to be deployed somewhere to do something about New Haven. Instead, they were going home. Commander Gregg found Jake in his ready room, staring at a photo of New Haven before the attack. It showed the town center full of people and life and hope. "What do you think is happening?" Gregg asked. Jake set down the photo. "I think we're done asking for permission. I think we're done waiting for others to fix our problems. You think we're going to war? I think," Jake said carefully, "that the Kryn Empire is about to learn something about humans. We're patient. We're peaceful. We prefer to solve problems with words. But when you kill our children, when you burn our homes, when you laugh about it..." He trailed off. "When that happens," Gregg prompted, "when that happens, we stop being patient. We stop being peaceful, and we make sure it never happens again." The USS Defender entered Earth's orbit 3 days later. Jake looked at 3 months to the day after humanity closed its borders. The Kryn military base at Korath 7 exploded. The attack came without warning. One moment, the base was functioning normally. The next, human warships appeared from faster-than-light travel and unleashed devastating firepower. The base commander barely had time to sound the alarm before the command center was destroyed. But the humans didn't fire blindly. They targeted weapon systems, shield generators, and power stations. They avoided the residential sections where Kryn families lived. 20 minutes before the attack, every Kryn civilian on the base received a message on their personal communicators. "Evacuate immediately. Military personnel remain. Civilians have 20 minutes. This is your only warning." Most thought it was a malfunction or a prank. Some listened. Those who listened survived. 20 minutes later, the attack began. When it was over, the military section of Korath 7 was rubble. The civilian section stood untouched. Human ships broadcast a message to the survivors. Your military murdered our civilians. We are not them. Evacuate now. This world is no longer safe. Then the human fleet vanished, jumping back into faster-than-light travel before Kryn reinforcements could arrive. Across the Kryn Empire, similar attacks happened simultaneously. 12 military installations hit in perfect coordination. Each attack followed the same pattern: warning to civilians, precise strikes on military targets, then withdrawal before reinforcements could respond. The Kryn High Command was in chaos. They had never seen tactics like this. The human ships moved faster than their sensors could track. The human weapons punched through shields that should have been impenetrable. The coordination was perfect, like watching a single organism instead of multiple ships. War Master Thexkar stood in his command center on the Kryn homeworld, watching reports flood in. His officers shouted updates, each one worse than the last. Korath 7 destroyed. 70% casualties, all military. Kelthus Station offline. All weapons platforms destroyed. The Third Fleet reports heavy damage. 15 ships lost. Thexkar slammed his fist on the console. How are they doing this? The humans have a smaller fleet. Older technology. How? His second-in-command Shellax pulled up tactical data. Their ships are moving in perfect coordination, War Master. Their electronic warfare is jamming our sensors. And look at this. She highlighted something on the screen. They're not using energy weapons primarily. They're using kinetic projectiles. Kinetic? Thexkar sneered. Primitive mass drivers? Those can't penetrate modern shields. These can, Shellax said grimly. They're moving at incredible speeds. By the time our shields detect them, they're already through. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not solid objects moving at near light speed. Thexkar studied the data. The humans had spent 3 months behind their closed borders preparing for this. They had analyzed Kryn tactics, identified weaknesses, and developed counters for everything. This wasn't a desperate strike. This was a calculated military campaign. Contact the Galactic Council, Thexkar ordered. Tell them humanity has gone rogue. They're attacking unprovoked. Commodore Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Retribution. His strike force consisted of 20 ships, all newly upgraded with the latest human technology. They had just hit their 4th target in 3 days. The operation was going better than anyone had hoped. Commander Amy Peterson monitored the tactical displays. All ships reporting successful strikes, sir. 0 civilian casualties. Military targets neutralized. We're ready to jump to the next location. Jake looked at the planet below, another Kryn military base reduced to scrap. He felt no satisfaction, no joy. This wasn't about feeling good. This was about preventing future massacres. Any Kryn military vessels responding? He asked. 3 destroyers moving to intercept, Amy reported. They'll arrive in 8 minutes. We'll be gone in 5. Set course for target 17. Execute jump as soon as we're clear. The fleet jumped away, leaving the destroyed base behind. The Kryn destroyers arrived to find nothing but debris. Admiral Kevin commanded the overall operation from a mobile command ship. His vessel wasn't designed for combat. It was designed for coordination. From here, he directed 15 strike forces across Kryn space. Ambassador Claire worked beside him, now serving as strategic coordinator. She monitored political developments while Kevin handled military operations. The Kryn have contacted the Galactic Council, Claire reported. They're claiming we're the aggressors. Kevin didn't look up from his displays. Are they mentioning that we've killed 0 civilians while destroying their military capacity? No, surprisingly, they're leaving that part out, Claire said dryly. The council wants to hold an emergency session. Are we attending? Only by hologram. I'm not setting foot on that station again. The council emergency session was tense. Species from across the galaxy watched as War Master Thexkar presented his case. He stood at the central platform, pointing at damage reports and casualty figures. The humans have attacked 12 of our installations without provocation, Thexkar declared. They have violated galactic peace. They must be stopped before they become a threat to everyone. Council Speaker Velmar looked troubled. This is indeed concerning. The Council cannot condone unprovoked military action. A hologram appeared on the platform, startling everyone. It was Admiral Kevin, broadcasting from somewhere in human space. He wore his military uniform and looked completely unbothered by the council's authority. Unprovoked? Kevin's voice echoed through the chamber. War Master Thexkar, please tell the council what happened at New Haven 3 months ago. Thexkar's expression darkened. That matter was settled. The council issued its ruling. The council issued a travesty, Kevin replied. You murdered 50,000 civilians. The council gave you a fine. That's not justice. So humanity is delivering justice ourselves. Velmar's feathers ruffled in agitation. Admiral Price, you cannot take the law into your own hands. This violates every principle the council stands for. Does it? Another hologram appeared next to Kevin's. This one showed Ambassador Claire. Let me show the council something. Images appeared on the screens. They showed Kryn military bases being destroyed. But they also showed something else. The warnings sent to civilians. The precision strikes that avoided residential areas. The human medical team standing by to treat wounded. Every attack we've conducted follows galactic law precisely, Claire said. We provide warnings. We avoid civilians. We target only military installations. And look at our casualty figures. 0 civilian deaths in all operations. She pulled up another screen showing New Haven. Compare that to the Kryn's attack on New Haven. No warning. Deliberate targeting of civilians. 50,000 murdered. Tell me, Council, which of us is violating galactic principles? High Minister Drax spoke up. This is sophistry. The humans are destabilizing the entire region. The Kryn destabilized the region when they committed genocide, Kevin shot back. We're just finishing what they started. Councillor Shemra, the Velthani representative, spoke for the first time. I have a question for War Master Thexkar. How many human civilians has the human fleet killed in these attacks? Thexkar hesitated. That's not relevant. It's extremely relevant, Shemra pressed.
How many?
None, Thexkar finally admitted. But that doesn't... So the humans warned civilians avoid residential areas and have killed 0 non-combatants, Shemra said. Meanwhile, your empire murdered 50,000 human civilians in a single attack. And you come here claiming to be the victim? The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some species supported the Kryn, others quietly agreed with Shemra. The council was fracturing. Kevin's hologram addressed them all. We're not asking for the council's permission. We're informing you of our intentions. The war continues until the Kryn Empire surrenders its leadership for trial. Every day they refuse, another military installation falls. We will dismantle their entire military if necessary. This is unacceptable, Velmar said weakly. 50,000 dead civilians was unacceptable, Claire replied. This is justice. The holograms vanished, leaving the council in chaos. The war continued for 4 months. The human fleet was relentless. They hit targets across the Kryn Empire, always following the same pattern. Warn civilians, strike military targets, withdraw before reinforcements arrive. The Kryn military tried everything. They ambushed human fleets, but the humans detected them first. They fortified their bases, but human weapons cut through the defenses. They tried to hit human colonies in retaliation, but human defense forces had been reinforced and drove them back with heavy losses. Commodore Jake's strike force destroyed 37 military targets without losing a single ship. His crew became legendary among human forces. Amy's tactical planning was studied by every other commander. They were winning not through superior numbers but through superior preparation and precision. Dr. Lisa compiled detailed documentation of every operation. She made sure each attack was legally justified, properly documented, and conducted according to galactic warfare conventions. The humans were destroying the Kryn military while maintaining absolute moral and legal authority. After 4 months, the Kryn Empire was crippled. Half their military installations were destroyed. Their fleet was reduced by 60%. The neutral station chosen for the trials was in an empty system between territories. No species could claim ownership. No political pressure could be applied. The trials would be fair and public, broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Ambassador Claire stood in the courtroom she had helped design. It was simple and functional. No impressive towers, no elaborate decorations, just a room where justice would be served. She had resigned from the diplomatic service officially, but now she served a more important role: chief prosecutor. Dr. Lisa worked as her assistant, handling the massive amount of evidence they had compiled. They had recordings, testimonies, tactical data, and the Kryn's own videos showing them celebrating the massacre. The case was overwhelming. The judges were chosen carefully. One human, one Velthani, and one from a neutral species called the Mirath who were known for fairness. 3 judges, each with veto power. Any verdict had to be unanimous. The defendants sat in a secured area. War Master Thexkar led them, along with 17 other Kryn commanders who had participated in the New Haven attack. They wore simple prison clothes, stripped of their military decorations. They looked smaller somehow, less threatening without their power and authority. The gallery was packed with observers from hundreds of species. The Galactic Council had sent representatives, though they had no official role. Counselor Shemra sat in the front row watching intently. The other council members sat further back, looking uncomfortable. Admiral Kevin watched from the human section. Commodore Jake sat beside him, along with Commander Amy and Greg. They represented all the humans who had fought in the war. But they also represented something more, the 50,000 who couldn't be here. The trials lasted for 3 months. Claire presented evidence methodically, building an overwhelming case. She showed the planning documents that proved the attack was premeditated. She showed the tactical orders that specifically targeted civilian areas. She showed the recordings of Kryn soldiers celebrating as children died. The defense lawyers provided by the court to ensure fairness tried to argue justification. They claimed territorial disputes, cultural differences, misunderstandings. Claire destroyed each argument with facts and evidence. The most powerful moment came when she called witnesses. Survivors weren't possible because there were no survivors from New Haven. Instead, she called the USS Defender's crew. Jake took the stand and described what they found when they arrived. His voice was steady, but his eyes were haunted. We walked through ruins that were still burning. We saw children's toys melted into the pavement. We found classrooms full of ash that used to be students. Amy testified about finding the Kryn's recordings. They filmed themselves laughing. They were proud of what they'd done. They wanted to show it off. Greg described documenting the aftermath. We counted 50,000 deaths. Not soldiers, not combatants, farmers, teachers, children, elderly, people who never held a weapon in their lives. The defense tried to cross-examine them, but there was nothing to challenge. The facts were indisputable. Thexkar himself took the stand. He showed no remorse, no regret. He justified everything as military necessity. When Claire asked him if he felt any responsibility for the deaths of children, he replied coldly, "War requires difficult decisions. The weak die. That is the nature of the universe." The gallery gasped. Even his own lawyers looked horrified. Claire stood before him holding a photo of New Haven before the attack. This was Sarah Miller. She was 8 years old. She liked painting and playing with her dog. She died in her classroom when you bombed her school. She placed the photo on the witness stand. Was her death a military necessity? Thexkar looked at the photo without emotion. "I don't know that child." "No, you don't. You murdered her without knowing her name, without knowing anything about her. That's what makes it worse." Claire placed another photo. "This is Henry Cooper, 5 years old. Loved trucks." Another photo. "This is Linda Hayes, 7 years old. Wanted to be a doctor." She kept placing photos one after another until the witness stand was covered in the faces of dead children. 50 photos. 100. 500. The gallery watched in silence as the pile grew. "These are just some of the children you murdered," Claire said. "I have 50,000 more names. Should we continue, or do you understand now what you've done?" Thexkar looked at the photos. For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Not remorse exactly, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. The verdict came after 3 months of testimony. The 3 judges deliberated for 1 week, reviewing every piece of evidence. Then they called the court to order. The lead judge, a Mirath named Judge Kelser, spoke. "This court has reviewed all evidence presented. We have heard testimony from witnesses, experts, and the defendants themselves. We have watched the recordings. We have studied the tactical data. We have examined every aspect of this case." The courtroom was silent. Everyone waited. "We find the defendants guilty of war crimes. They deliberately targeted civilians. They showed no mercy to non-combatants. They celebrated the deaths of innocents. Under galactic law, these actions cannot be justified by any military or political reasoning." The verdict was unanimous. All 3 judges agreed. War Master Thexkar and the 17 co-defendants are sentenced to life imprisonment, without possibility of parole. They will serve their sentences in a facility designed and operated under galactic oversight, ensuring humane treatment despite the inhumane nature of their crimes. Thexkar stood as guards came to escort him away. He looked at Claire one last time. You think this changes anything? The galaxy is still ruled by strength. Your justice is temporary. Claire met his gaze steadily. We'll see. The Kryn Empire was required to pay reparations, not to the Galactic Council but directly to a